What is going on? Welcome back to the channel. Today we're going to talk to you about Lucid. Give you a quick overview of some of the data points, what's really moving it, and everything else you need to know. But first, make sure you hit that thumbs up, and with that, let's get right to it. So Lucid's down 1.72%, piggybacking off of the kind of Black Monday, if you want to call it. So a lot of fears associated to tariffs. And so over the weekend, Trump did state that he's going to tariff all countries. A lot of grayness in that, so we'll just have to wait and see how that does play out. But essentially, I think a lot of us can agree that Lucid is in a very unique circumstance, and this is why it's somewhat doing out of my watch list. It's pretty much the best except for NIO, UPS, and then Nike. For whatever reason, those ones are up, but Lucid's in a very unique circumstance because I have AMP1 and AMP2. So AMP1 can fulfill for the states, be over and above and kind of a loophole around the whole auto tariffs. And then AMP2, which they did recently announce. So Lucid did join the Made in Saudi Arabia program. That was a couple months ago in January. But AMP2 is going to be huge, and in my opinion, I think at least in the foreseeable future, even though for face value, I think AMP1 can do a little bit more for capacity, AMP2 is going to be where Lucid makes most of the money from. So they can ship it worldwide at pretty much a fraction of the cost, not really getting hit by any tariffs. They already have all their supply agreements. They're pretty much their own separate entity. So I think all in all, Lucid is going to do fairly well in the foreseeable future. Just the big question is demand. A lot of this tariffs are going to really hit consumers. You have analysts starting to really downgrade S&P targets, raise gold targets. So I think just consumers might struggle. So the only issue is just overall demand. But as Lucid does really get their costs down, hopefully the midsize as well stays in line with their original target, then I think bigger picture Lucid should do fairly well. Let me know your general thoughts on that. One thing that did come out though, if you are curious, there was a kind of a very closer viewpoint of the New York event that did happen. So definitely pop over, go watch this individual's video. So 𝗖𝗢𝗡𝗚𝗧. So yeah, a lot of good interviews and kind of behind the scenes viewpoint of that event. But aside from that though, the only other thing I wanted to bring up was this. So I know I vaguely brought up about the $3 price target recently that did come out. So 3 days ago, you had Cantor Fitzgerald, $3 price target, Andre Shepard, who has a 36% success rating, which is horrific, but mind you, $3 given where Lucid's at is fairly good. This individual did post the breakdown of it, so it goes over the concerns, so feel free to pause it, go through it. It does bring up the whole leadership change as a little bit of a negative, which I think all of us can somewhat agree on, but I think Mark's vision for Lucid should do fairly well. So let me know your kind of thoughts on that. Aside from all this fun stuff, shorts are increasing, but then again, like, doesn't really matter the market circumstances. A good 80% of the time, shorts are always increasing, so always trying to manipulate Lucid, but they're increasing 478,000 shares. 23.45% of the free float is being shorted. Works out to be 284.96 million shares overall are being shorted. Looking at options, markets have been only open roughly an hour or so, so take this all with a grain of salt. But 135,000 in calls, 38,000 in puts. 47% of all the options being done today are optimistic in nature. Of the calls that are being done, you see a consensus for it to be above 3. So despite the craziness that's happening in the broader market, you are seeing a good level of optimism. Bears, on the flip side, they are anticipating for it to be sub $2/$1.50 in the next couple of weeks, but very low amounts. So again, take this all with a grain of salt. These are all the transactions occurring on the secondary market above $100,000. So you do see 4 sells. So not big money is essentially not really buying the Lucid dip based on this. I think algorithmic trading is really pushing it higher, as well as dark pool. So these are all the transactions occurring on the dark pool. Today, on a side note, it's the last day in Q1, so you should see a lot of extra volatility as institutions rebalance, and given Lucid's price action in comparison to broader indexes, it's lagged. So I think in essence, you are going to see a lot more buying occurring for Lucid today, coming from probably on the dark pool, so something to keep in mind. But with it right now at $2.29, it is trading between this pivot and this S1, so 226 is going to be that next strong support. Bounced off of this general area of this S2, so that's going to be a good support level just to keep note of going forward. And then flip side, 236 and 246 is going to be the next strong target slash resistance points. No real substantial articles coming out recently. As you can kind of see, it's just a lot of people talking about tariffs, what that ultimately means for consumers, the economy, the auto tariffs. I think a lot of articles are bringing it up as a fairly big negative, but at the same time, I think if you read between the lines, I know it's not really calling out Lucid, but Lucid should do fairly well because of all that. But on the actual chart itself, so $2.37 is that ALMA, so it is below that, so the technicals are showing a little bit more of a further breakdown. But like I said, in comparison to what is truly happening in the broader market, Lucid's doing not that bad. But stochastic RSI, Lucid's considered very overbought, so that's what's happened over the last little bit. It really pushed higher from bouncing off of the kind of $2 low range right here. So yeah, it's considered overbought, but then again, any stock correcting, it can stay in overbought for a while now. So I think all in all, it's going to be a bumpy ride. I think a lot of investors already knew that, and if you've been investing in Lucid for a while now, you would know that it is a very, very bumpy ride. But I think given this time around, new recent changes, so we have that interim CEO, Mark, very good vision. CFO even spoke. They have their own vision as well that coincides with Mark's for as like marketing and stuff like that. That's something that we have never heard either Sherry or Gagnon speak of. Usually they're very scripted, so the CFO has very rarely ever given their viewpoint on where they see Lucid going. So I think it's should be exciting times ahead, but again, a lot of volatility. So if you believe in Lucid, take the time, buy the dip, do what you need to do. Let me know your general thoughts on Lucid. Don't forget to hit that thumbs up. One final thing, pop over to my Patreon and give buy signals on stocks, options, and crypto. Many of them have been absolutely on point. Definitely worthwhile to pop over there and take a look. With all that, appreciate all of you watching.